Hey, welcome back. First of all, please excuse the state of my garage. I've got at least 6 videos that are currently being filmed. I've got a new lathe. Now, the last time you guys saw the buggy, I broke both trailing arms at Durhamtown. I've decided what I'm going to do here. I'm going to, of course, redo all of that because that was done on that little flux welder. I'll redo that. I'll beef that up, of course, and then I probably will add one more piece in here somewhere to strengthen this up. So let's say that's the rear knuckle center line. I'm going to move that back this way, probably somewhere about 1.5 inches. I doubt I'll go as much as 2 inches. By shortening that, there's going to be far less twisting leverage on this, which is what blew this one out in the first place. The wheel, when it contacts the ground, you have the wheel pushing up from here, right? And then I have the suspension pushing down here. So one of two things was going to happen when you hit this thing hard enough from the ground. You're going to break something on this outer line here because of the twisting. And it makes sense now that I'm looking at this thing and evaluating it. It makes sense that that is the spot that it blew out. And that's the first spot that blew out on both the left and the right side. Now the right side was particularly bad, so it blew that one out, which then resulted in this one failing and then one of these inside ones cracking as well. What I'm actually doing is I'm creating a lot more clearance for the axle over here, which means I can now drop this down another inch or two, giving me that full 14 to 16 inches worth of travel that I'm looking for. So, I finally got a metal bandsaw. But yeah, I think this should do a better job. So I'm gonna get this thing loaded up. So the one that I added was this cross member here. I really didn't have anything that was actually crossing from one side of the arms over to the other side. So this one in the middle is now a link between both sides of the arms. It's just a little bit of extra insurance. If anything, it'll make me feel a little bit better about it, but this is how they came out, and I was able to dial in. I took out some of the camber in the rear end. I had a little bit more than I thought I did. I had about 3 degrees, maybe slightly more than 3 degrees on both sides originally. And you could tell when you looked at the buggy from the back, there was a little bit of negative camber on the rear end of this. I reduced that to about 1 degree on both sides. So tiny bit of camber, not as much as before, more strength and better suspension. And I think in total, I ended up removing about, well, somewhere between 2 to 3 inches of width in the rear end. So the rear end is noticeably not as wide as it was before. This is a better setup. It's going to be back closer to its original width now that these are shorter. So I don't think these will break again. Just got to get them painted and reinstalled at this point, and then we'll move on to the next step in the process.
A few moments later.
So here's how the trailing arms came out. Now this time, the difference, last time I had about 3 degrees of negative camber. This time I've only got between 1 to 1.5 degrees of camber on the rear. I measured this last night. It's now at a 76-inch rear end, which if you guys follow, race cars, buggies, cross carts, side-by-sides, that kind of thing, 76 is still really, really wide. I was at like almost 78, 79 inches wide before. So I like this setup much better. It looks a little bit more sleek when you're looking down like from the rear of the buggy this way. Of course, we do still have to figure out the driveline at this point. And now also the suspension. What I've got to try to figure out is how much ground clearance. Now this is kind of how I set this up last night, but I was looking at this. The front end is definitely going to be like 1 inch to 1.5 inches taller with the new suspension than it was previously. The rear end, I'm trying to figure out how much I want to do in terms of suspension travel. So there's always going to be a compromise. This is kind of a do-everything machine. So once I get the driveline figured out and I can just instantly put down, 350 horsepower to the rear end without the thing, torque steering into my friends' lanes and that kind of thing, it is going to be one of the fastest builds in the world. But now at least it'll be fast and comfortable, which is, I need to have some kind of compromise. This is not a pure race machine. If it were a pure race machine, I would be taking a lot of the suspension travel out of it. It would be a little bit faster in a track setting, but I need this to be a good all-around machine. So at this point, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to just figure out the length I would need and the angles that are correct for this machine in terms of the driveline. So I've got to do that first, so that way I can figure out how much suspension I can actually have in this rear end, how much droop, how much sag, how much total suspension travel. So that's what's next on the plate, and keep working on this driveline.